Hi everybody, and welcome back to Japan This Week. Spoiler alert, this week's video will be on a single topic. We'll take a look at one minor news that can lead us into a very interesting discussion. The plan to release the treated water from Fukushima's former nuclear plant, which is upsetting the nearby fishing communities, who worry about the reputational damage that this might ensue. But first, a disclaimer and then some context. I am no nuclear expert. I have very little scientific knowledge on the matter, and for time reasons, I won't be able to go into much detail. However, this video won't be neither for nor against the use of nuclear power. That's not the main topic. We will have to tap on that, but the main point is the reaction of the government, the public opinion, and the facts surrounding the nuclear disaster at Fukushima. If you want accurate scientific facts about nuclear energy, go listen to a real expert or delve into the links in the description. Nonetheless, I have my own opinion on the matter and I won't conceal it. It'll be pretty self-evident throughout the video. That said, let's take a look at what's happening. Back in March 2011, a combined earthquake and tsunami hit the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, one of the two plants that were located in the prefecture of Fukushima. As a safety measure, the reactors shut down upon detecting the earthquake, but the subsequent damage done by the 40 feet tall tsunami to the cooling system caused nuclear meltdowns in 3 out of 6 reactors. The water that was then used to cool the reactors became contaminated with radioactive materials, and immediately after the disaster, in April, more than 11,000 tons of untreated water with a radioactivity level 100 times above the legal limit had to be released in the Pacific Ocean to make space for some even more contaminated water. You have to understand that even in a normal situation, a lot of water is needed to cool down a nuclear reactor. Now imagine how much water might need 3 nuclear reactors during meltdown. Soon after, in May, another 300,000 tons of untreated water were dumped into the ocean because of how few water tanks the plant had at the time. For now, let's keep this water contamination and the lack of tanks in mind for later. At any rate, all the damage caused to the plant led to an environmental disaster. In the early days, leaks of groundwater were contaminating the environment and seeping to the ocean with cesium, strontium, and tritium, to the point where 2 years later, levels of strontium in a groundwater well were 160,000 times higher than the standard for safe discharge. The initial water dumping caused 41% of the fish caught off Fukushima coast to have a level of cesium concentration above the legal limit. In addition, some of the cesium was blown all around the Pacific Ocean, so far away that scientists discovered traces of it in the wine produced in Napa Valley, California. All of this led to the immediate evacuation of the surrounding areas. This map shows the initial evacuation zone, spanning a radius of 12 miles, and the other restricting areas up to 2017. And all in all, 154,000 people were evacuated from those areas. While these moves were effective in preventing short-term radiation-caused deaths and illnesses, with only one certified death linked to radiation exposure, a screening program in 2012 found that 36% of children in Fukushima had abnormal growths in their thyroid glands. In addition to that, we also tend to ignore the psychological damage that such an event has on people, which was severe and includes anxiety, higher suicide rates, which are already sky high in Japan, and social isolation. Now that we know the context, let's jump to the controversy. The Japanese government already decided to decommission both nuclear plants, but this will take between 30 to 40 years. And to do so, they somehow have to get rid of all the contaminated water. One of the solutions could be leaving the untreated water in the tanks and let the radiation decay naturally. Problem is, in 2022, the Daiichi plant will run out of space to build them, and the government doesn't want to expropriate the land surrounding the plant to build more, even though that's not suitable for human life anymore. This decision was harshly criticized, especially by the Mainichi Shimbun, one of the most influential Japanese newspapers, which said that the government showed no sincerity and unilaterally pushed through with its own plan. And what is this plan? Basically, to treat the wastewater in order to reduce its radioactivity, and then releasing it 1 kilometer off the coast through an undersea tunnel. The machine through which TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, plans to achieve this is called ALPS, the Advanced Liquid Processing System, basically a filter that clears water from its radionuclides, but which can't filter tritium, an isotope of hydrogen. And here we come to the main issue. the water wouldn't be completely decontaminated, and the fishing communities around the area worried that this fact might cause them another big reputational damage, imperiling their already weak recovery after the incident itself and the pandemic. The Alps can remove many radioactive isotopes, but not tritium. And although the radiation level would be below the required safety standard, scientists and officials who claim that the treated water is scientifically safe are generally met with skepticism, as they refuse to drink that same water. In addition, a panel of public policy professors pointed out that there is a lack of research on the potential harmful effects of tritium, implying that the assertion that the water is safe is made more on a lack of data than actual proof. Michiaki Kai, a Japanese nuclear expert, states that there is consensus among scientists that the impact on health is minuscule. But still, it can be said that the risk is zero, which is what causes the controversies. Therefore, it's important to understand that it's not as if the water dump won't have any impact. It will. We simply set our standards to a level where we think it won't be a serious enough health hazard for us and the environment. To be fair, there is to say that other plants across the world have already dumped way more treated water from nuclear plants, without this much opposition. For instance, the La Hague reprocessing plant in France in 2018 has dumped 13 times the total amount of tritium contained in the water in Fukushima. Moreover, Japan's nuclear plants, both before the Fukushima incident and afterwards, were and are supervised by the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, an international organization that seeks to promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy. This agency has not been immune to criticism, especially in its sluggish response to Fukushima, but overall it has proven to be a decent oversight organization. And after the incident, the IAEA has been constantly monitoring the progress on the decommissioning of the plants, writing reports on the functionality of the Alps and its safety. My point, though, is that we have to understand the reasons of the public opinion for all this skepticism. All this opposition seems to be generated by rumors and misinformation, but let's take into consideration the context of this discussion. The main problem is that TEPCO has lost the Japanese public's trust because of all its lies and obstructionism regarding the Fukushima plant. On July 5, 2012, a Diet-led independent investigating commission found that the causes of the accident had been foreseeable and TEPCO had failed to meet basic safety requirements. 3 months later, at a meeting in Vienna, the IAEA faulted lax oversight by the Ministry of Economy, saying it faced an inherent conflict of interest as the government regulatory agency is in charge both of regulating and promoting the nuclear power industry. And although there is an agreement on the safety of Alps, most of the recent information regarding its functionality have been provided by TEPCO and the biased Japanese regulatory agency, which is obviously trying to save its face. We should have a huge conversation about the concept of saving face in Japanese society and how this is so embedded that it can lead to terrible mistakes, both on a personal and on a governmental level. But that's for another time. Suffice it to say that the idea that TEPCO and the government may still be hiding information in spite of public safety is not a baseless conspiracy theory. In 2013, after years of repeated denials, TEPCO finally admitted to the initial leakage of radioactive material in the groundwater. And on top of that, when the idea of the water dump became a reality, in 2015, the Fukushima fishery cooperatives were given written promises by TEPCO itself that they wouldn't proceed before consulting the fishery industry. But the actions from the Japanese government bypassed all this, and once again, TEPCO's word is worth nothing. After all this, there is nothing to be surprised about how little trust people have in both TEPCO and the government. A survey by the Ibaraki Shimbun found that only 35.5% of the voters in that prefecture were supportive of the discharge. In particular, women and young people were the most cautious. And even if this can be interpreted as a very low trust index towards the government, I take it as positive news. We are finally withstanding the growth of a generation that asks questions before committing a potential environmental disaster, even if this means being cautious with nuclear energy. This is it for this week. I know it was a lot and it might cause a bit of a discussion. Please leave me your thoughts in the comments, and once again, I am no scientist. This was only my reasoned opinion, given all the information and data that I could find. But of course, I could be wrong. So I'll leave you all the links to the newspaper articles and the IAEA reports in the description. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.